Hello everyone, in this video I wanted to talk to you all about shotguns. Obviously with the nature of Fortnite, shotgun fights and just usage of shotguns can be one of the most important skills in the game as far as weapons go. So I wanted to make this video to give you guys as many shotgun tips as I can to help you improve as a player. If you find this video helpful, please do remember to drop a like on it and subscribe. Also make sure you watch till the end of the video, that way you can learn as much as you can from this video. Start off with some of the basics of shotguns, and even if you've been playing Fortnite for a long time, I still think you can learn something from this portion because I stream Fortnite every day. I talk to people about this game every day, lots of different people, and I know people who have been playing the game for several months, since release even, who still don't seem to understand some of the basics of shotguns. Essentially how shotguns work is you shoot out a spread of pellets and then your damage is based on how many pellets you hit. In Season 6 they reworked shotguns to give you a minimum damage of 3 pellets even if you hit only 1 or 2, but this is why shotguns can be inconsistent, because you aren't always hitting all of your pellets at once. So just keep that in mind. If you think shotguns are completely random, they aren't. They shoot a spread of pellets, and then however many pellets you hit is how much damage you do. Because of how pellets work and how they spread throughout your reticle, I think it's most important with your shotgun to focus on the dot that is in the center of your crosshair. If you put that where you need it to be, if you put that center mass on the opponent's head, or chest rather, if you put that on their head, that's when a majority of your pellets are going to actually hit the target. But let's say your pellet is slightly off center, like your pellet isn't on their head, but their head still exists in your reticle, you're only going to hit a few of the pellets because a large portion of the spread is going to be like not on their head. This is why you get like headshots that aren't good damage, but you're like, oh, I got a headshot, why is it bad damage? Because it actually wasn't that great of a headshot. If you want to maximize how many pellets are hitting your opponent, put that dot where it needs to be, not the edge of the crosshair. I see so many people just having the edge of the crosshair on the opponent's head and then complaining when they get inconsistent damage. The next thing I wanted to talk about is just basic crosshair placement. This is important for any shooting game ever, but very important in Fortnite as well. Basically, you want to keep your crosshair at a little bit higher than just center. You want to keep it more towards head level. Newer players and like less experienced players tend to keep their crosshair towards like pointed down a lot or slightly downwards. Average players usually somewhat center. And then if you want to hit a lot of headshots, which is like what you want to do in Fortnite, and with shotguns you're going to be hip firing a lot, so your crosshair placement is very, very important. This is going to make it to where you don't have to adjust your aim as much. So when you're in a building, keep it at head level. If you're going through a door, keep your crosshair trained on that door. Like there's various things you could do with your crosshair, and if you watch a good player, they're going to have good crosshair placement a lot of times. A lot of it just comes down to predicting your opponent, or predicting opponents and understanding like the basics of the game. But if you have good crosshair placement, you're going to minimize how much you actually need to aim, and it's going to lead to a lot of consistency. Like let's say your crosshair is already at head level a lot of times, you only have to move it left to right. Like that's obviously a lot easier to adjust for if you're just moving your crosshair left to right than if you're moving it up, down, left, and right and all those other things while jumping and doing whatever you're doing in a fight. So I think having good crosshair placement is very important to having good consistent shotgun aim. This is something that you see a lot of players struggle with because this basic like fundamental skill they just don't understand because they focus on much more complex things. You'll see a lot of players focus on double floor wall ramping while pushing somebody and not just having basic good crosshair placement. Focus on your crosshair placement and your aim will be consistent. Now that you've focused on your crosshair placement, I'm going to tell you how to aim these shotguns. You'll see a lot of newer players make the mistake of full ADSing. You pretty much never want a full ADS with your shotguns in Fortnite unless you're hard holding an angle, which is going to be pretty rare. Maybe unless you're shooting through a window, or if you're shooting at an opponent who doesn't know where you are. Like if you come up behind somebody and they aren't aware of you, maybe take the time, aim in and get like that perfect shot. But a lot of times if you're aiming in with your shotgun, you're actually going to put yourself at a disadvantage because you're not able to make the adjustments that you need to make as quickly. You're not going to be able to flick as much because when you aim down sights, it lowers your sensitivity. But also when you aim down sights, you can't move as fast. Like aim down sights and try to strafe, you're not nearly as fast and you can't jump as if you are just hip firing. You can strafe very quickly left to right, and you can also jump. You can crouch. Well, you can crouch while ADS, but you can jump and strafe faster while you're hip firing. And also when you are ADS, like I said, you can't adjust as quickly, which is gonna give an advantage to the opponent who is also strafing and jumping very quickly. In addition to the fact that a lot of shotgun fights also involve a lot of building. and you're just not going to be able to ADS a lot in those situations. And if you are taking the time to ADS, you're probably going to miss out on your opportunity to shoot. You're going to make yourself an easier target, and you're probably going to be slower at like getting your builds up. And all of these things are just going to result in you most likely losing the fight. So if you want to be like good and consistent with your shotguns, practice relying on your hipfire. If you play on controller, you can ADS or L2, LT, whatever you want to call it. If you do a quick ADS right before you shoot just to get some of that aim assist, that's fine. But you are going to make yourself stop in that time. If you, like I said, if you want to be good and consistent, practice your hipfire, get your hipfire good, and then the rest will be good. If you can only hit shotgun shots when you're like stopping, standing still, and like full aiming, a lot of times it's just not going to work out for you. Pretty much never aim down sights unless I really need like a perfect shot. But then again, like I'm someone who's very experienced with the game, and I understand that I am putting myself in a disadvantage potentially, but sometimes that one shot might win you the fight, whereas like you're dead anyways, you know? So don't ADS is essentially what I'm saying. Pretty much the only times I do it, like I said, if I'm shooting through a window and it's awkward, like that happens sometimes. If someone doesn't know where I am, if I'm right shoulder peeking, that's another thing. If you're right shoulder peeking, you can get away with it. But those are like the basic times. Very specific scenarios. A lot of time you're going to want to go for your hip fires. Maybe do a quick, like brief use of the aim assist. Just tap it right before you shoot. Maybe squeeze out a little bit of that aim assist to help your aim just get it a little more on point. But in general, you want to hip fire because this is going to lead to you being more consistent in the long run. Like I said, if your crosshair placement is good, you're not going to have to adjust as much. And then this also allows you to be more mobile in the fight, which is going to make you a harder target to hit. And if your aim isn't that good, you can use your movement to help you aim in some cases. Right shoulder peeks are something I just touched on, but I'm going to have some gameplay on screen here. When you're peeking from the right side of your character, you have to expose less of your character than if you peek from the left side. I'll just have some gameplay on the screen like I said. It's just the crosshair isn't directly centered, so when you peek from the right, you expose less of your character, right? And this is good when fighting in buildings, but also just because of, like I said, every shotgun fight usually involves some sort of building unless you just like insta-kill somebody or you're at a match or something. There's usually builds involved in shotgun fights, so you can set up these right shoulder peeks, especially if you're weak. This is something that I go to if I'm weak a lot and an opponent is chasing me. If you can get them to chase you into a right shoulder peek that you have, and you have a blue or better pump, which isn't even that rare at this point, like blue pump will suffice because it does 200 damage. If you get this right shoulder peek off, it's very easy to have your crosshair at head level because the opponent is chasing you. Just slide out, get the easy one pump, and this will help you win a lot of fights when you're behind. But also, if you get good at abusing this, it'll help you stay ahead in fights. You can right shoulder peek your ramps, you can kind of right shoulder peek over builds in a way, and you can right shoulder peek just from walls, windows, whatever. If you make a window, you want to be right shoulder peeking that window rather than left shoulder peeking your window. That way you expose less of yourself to that opponent. Looks very just like kind of fluky on their screen, like there's not much they can do about it. They barely see anything and then they're dead. So understanding positioning in fights and understanding like how you can abuse right shoulder peeks and getting this into be a second nature will really help you win a lot more shotgun fights. And notice it has very little to do with aiming. If your aim is like crap, you can still abuse right shoulder peeks and hit a lot of easy shots, especially if they're running like straight at you or running through a doorway or something. Those are really easy shots to hit. It's kind of hard to miss and you have very good cover. So this is a way that you can improve your shotgun aim and your consistency in shotgun fights without having like any mechanical skill of aiming, just by making better decisions. There's a lot of players who have very good mechanical skill and they're really good at aiming, but they don't do the basics. Like I was saying, they don't have good crosshair placement. They don't abuse these right shoulder peeks when they should, and that ends up costing them in a lot of situations. People who are really good or really consistent are going to be mechanically skilled and smart. So you want to be able to do both, and understanding right shoulder peeks is something that's very simple that can actually go a long way in your gameplay. The next thing I want to talk about is when to spray an SMG or when to build after you shoot your shotgun. A lot of players, after they pump the opponent, will either switch to an SMG or switch to an AR or an attempt to finish the opponent quickly since they've already gotten a lot of damage out of their pump. Or they'll build to create a better situation and potentially avoid damage. I get this question a lot on stream. I think the two biggest things to consider is how much damage you did with your pump shot, or just how weak you think the opponent is, and also whose shot is going to be up first. Okay, so let's say you've done 150 damage to this opponent. You just pumped him for 150, let's say. You know he has a maximum of 50 HP remaining, right? You can only have 200 HP. So if you hit someone for 150, at a max they have 50. This is going to be 2 to 3 SMG shots, or maybe 1 to 2 depending on if you get a headshot. In that situation, it's probably good to go for the SMG spray, but it also depends on whose shot is going to be up first. Let's say your opponent shoots the pump, misses. you then shoot, you hit your shot, and then you're switching to your SMG, their pump shot is going to be up before you get your SMG shot out potentially, and this could cost you in the long run, so it might be better to build. But if you guys shoot at like roughly the same time, and like let's say you hit your shot and they miss, you might want to go for the spray, because a lot of players also go for the spray after they shoot their shotgun. So you're going to be okay. You're ahead on damage there. A lot of SMGs are just trading damage. So if you're already ahead on damage and you're okay with trading, you're probably going to win that fight, unless like just like inconsistent things happen, but we'll get to that in a moment. If you shoot your shot and let's say you get a 30 damage shot, your aim wasn't that great in that moment or whatever, or let's say you miss completely, you probably want to build, unless you know the opponent is really weak. If you get bad damage or you get no damage at all, you're probably going to want to build and set up for a later fight. Pretty much only want to go to the SMG if you're very certain you can kill the opponent very quickly after swapping to it. This gets to the next point, like I said. So now that we got that out of the way, pretty much only use the SMG if you have the opponent really weak, and if you know like they might be using their SMG as well, or if they just missed their pump shot, so you know that they're pumping or switching, whatever they're doing, they can't output damage in this moment with their shotgun. They can't just output 200 damage. That's what we want to avoid. Once you switch to your SMG, you want to either crouch or jump. That's basically what I do all the time. I pump and then jump while switching to the SMG and then spray the SMG. Or I crouch while switching to the SMG and then spray the SMG. You want to do something while in the swapping animation to throw off the opponent's aim. And while you're using the SMG, spam crouch, jump, do whatever you want to do. The SMG is a much more forgiving weapon in terms of aim than the pump is. With the pump, you want to time your jumps and your crouches so that you don't throw your own aim off. But with the SMG, it doesn't really matter because you have 30-40 rounds of spray and they have high fire rates and they do a good amount of damage. So making yourself a harder target to hit is more beneficial, even if it costs you a few bullets, just because you're putting out bullets so much faster. Whereas with the pump, it has a slower fire rate, so your accuracy is at a premium. You don't want to throw off your aim and mess up your shots because the next shots are coming out slowly. Whereas an SMG, focus a lot more on your mobility, focus a lot more on crouching, jumping, doing all these things randomly and making yourself a harder target to hit. That way you can stay alive during the fight. And like I said, I like to do that during the swap. During the swap, I'll usually crouch or I'll jump. One of the two, pretty much all the time. Like I said before, do not use your SMG if you do not have the opponent weak. I see so many people, they pump me and they miss their shot. I hit mine and then we both switch to SMGs and I kill them, and they've done nothing to me, and it's just kind of questionable what they thought they were getting out of that situation. If you hit your shot for bad damage or no damage, you pretty much want to build at all times. Unless you know the opponent's really weak. Like if you've hit them for a good amount and then you hit them for 30, maybe you can finish them with a sub. But you guys know what I'm saying. Don't use the SMG unless you're very certain the opponent has like less than 80 HP or something along those lines. So I think that's going to be it for this video. I mean, there's a lot to go into with shotguns, but I think some of that I can cover in other videos. A lot of shotgun fights, one thing I do want to get into, I guess, a lot of shotgun fights come into situations where the opponent is turtling. They're just building themselves in, and then you either need to break their builds with explosives, spray it with an SMG, or build, replace, and pump. Like I said before, when you edit a window, you're going to want to right shoulder peek your window. So just keep that in mind. Get in the habit of always right shoulder peeking your window if you can. That way you're just exposing less of your character, whereas if you're left shoulder peeking your window or just making it center and you're getting a 50-50 fight, that's not really good. Your edits are good when you can catch the opponent off guard or when you can force them into a situation where you're abusing a right shoulder peek. But I think I'll have a video at a later date to deal with those turtles, so make sure you check my channel. And there's some other things that you can do with like jiggle peeking when you have high ground, and then like jumping and placing floors as you shoot to like keep high ground and output damage. But I think I want to make a separate video on what to do when you have high ground. Let me know if you would like to see that in the comments below. So that's going to do it for this video. Like I said before, make sure you're focusing on your dot, the dot in the center of your reticle. Put that where you need to be to get a good amount of pellets on target. Get good like focus on your crosshair placement, like literally pay attention to this while you're playing. Put that crosshair more at head level. Try not to aim down sight unless it's a very specific situation where maybe you're looking through a window, you're holding an angle, or if like the opponent isn't aware of you. Other than that, you want to hip fire. Maybe abuse a bit of aim assist if you are playing on controller right before you shoot. Get in the habit of abusing right shoulder peeks, and then know when to swap to an SMG or an AR and when to build instead. Like I said, you don't want to use that SMG and AR unless you're very certain that the opponent's weak. If you miss your shot or get bad damage, you want to build and create a better situation for later. that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comments below what you found most useful about this video and if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Also, make sure you like it. That does help the video reach more people. And if you would like to see more videos from me, subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitch. My Twitch is evolve_Jake. And I live stream Fortnite on there every single day. So if you want to ask me any questions about the game or anything I talked about in this video, feel free to do so on Twitch. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all another time.